In this exercise, we're going to take the botanical illustration we created and make a pattern. The first thing I'm going to do is create a second artboard because the exercise requirements say that you need to turn in a 2-page PDF. And right now we just have the one artboard that is 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. That'll do for our pattern swatch, but we also need a 2000 pixel height by 3000 pixel width a second page where we're going to apply the pattern. So that's what we're going to create now. Go down to the Artboard tool and click the new Artboard button in the control panel, which will create an equally sized artboard next to the first one. These artboards can be named whatever you want. So this first one, for instance, we can call the swatch. And if I click on the second one, I can go up and name that the pattern. And the order that they will be in the final PDF document has to do with these numbers next to them. So right now this will be the first page and this second one will be the second page. If you want to reorder these, you can always go to the artboard panel on the side and just drag one in front of the other. You can also use these arrow keys to reorder them. So sometimes you'll have a document with tons of artboards. This is the way to organize them. We're also going to want to resize this one so that it's the right size. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 3000 for the width. And then for the height, I'm going to type in 2000. You can see that now this is kind of overlapping with the other artboard. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and just sort of drag it over. And since this artboard was overlapping with that object, the leaf sort of came along with it. So this is a little quirk of the artboard system. In this case, it's not a big deal because we didn't really want the leaf on either one, but it's just something to watch out for. Sometimes if you have complex graphics, you're going to want to make sure that you're not dragging things around with artboards unintentionally. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the selection tool. Now that I'm out of the artboard tool, these artboards aren't movable, which is actually nice. They're going to stay in place. I'm going to drag our leaf over to the side so we can work with it. So once again, this is where we're going to define our swatch. And then in here, we're going to go ahead and apply our final pattern. I'm actually going to go to the artboard tool and move this over a little bit more just so we have more space to work. All right, so let's go back to our swatch. So one of the rules with pattern creation is that it has to be seamless, which means that if we have an object that's overlapping with an edge, that object has to be repeated seamlessly with the opposite edge. Same with side to side. If there's something sticking out on one side, that object has to be duplicated and positioned exactly so that it repeats seamlessly with the opposite edge. That means that we can repeat the pattern as many times as we want, and there won't be a seam or any kind of glitch where the edge of the pattern is showing. So what we're going to do is first shrink down our leaf, but one little quirk that we have to fix is right now we have a stroke inside of our leaf. So if you remember, this stem is created out of a 20 pixel stroke. We're going to actually want to convert that to a shape. The reason for this is that strokes act a little bit differently than shapes. They keep their same stroke width even when they are resized. So just as an example, if I copy this and then make it much, much larger, you'll see now that the stroke for the stem is actually relatively smaller compared to the leaf because it stayed at 20 points despite the fact that the rest of the leaf got like 3 times as big. So the reason this is a problem is, if we're working with a pattern, maybe we're shrinking stuff down. And now if I zoom in on this, you'll see that it got really chunky on us because this stem is still 20 points, even though we shrunk down the rest of the leaf. So we don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is select any stroke elements. In my case, it's just this stem. And I'm going to go up to Object and then Expand Appearance. So when I do that, now this is converted to a shape. So Illustrator went in and just turned this into a regular vector shape. So now it's just a triangle. So that's going to scale much more seamlessly. If I scale this down, you'll see that it'll always keep its proportion, which is what we want. All right. So now I'm going to start positioning these leaves in a way that makes sense for my pattern. There's 2 different patterns that I'm going to show you in this tutorial. One is more of a regular pattern where it's a little bit more organized and it repeats exactly. And then one that's a little bit less organized. It's a little bit wilder and more organic. So I'm going to start with the more organized pattern. I'm going to copy a leaf over here and just shrink it down a bit It's a little bit big for this 1000 pixel by 1000 pixel swatch. And what I'm going to do is have it repeat one time vertically and then one time horizontally. So with this right in the middle, I'm going to move it down so that the center of the object is right in line with this bottom of the artboard. So the smart guides will help you do this because they'll tell you when the object center is right in the middle. So now I'm going to create a copy of this and move it straight up and have it intersect with the same part of the leaf on the top part of the artboard. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift and then click and drag up. And then again, I'm going to hit that right center of the object. I'm holding down Shift, so that ensures that the leaf is moving straight up. And then I'm going to release. So now I have two different leaves, one on each side, and the pattern is going to continue seamlessly. So if you think about the way this pattern is going to work, you know, one part of the pattern is going to have the top part of the leaf, and then the other part of the pattern is going to have the bottom part of the leaf. And no matter how far we extend this pattern, it's going to repeat and be seamless. All right, so let's make another copy of the leaf, but this time we'll put it on the vertical edges so that it can repeat horizontally as well. So I'm going to select this leaf, and then holding down Option, I'm going to click and drag to make a copy. Again, these smart guides are going to help me position the leaf right in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can always zoom in to check, and you can see that these vertical anchor points are helping define the center of the leaf. So the leaf isn't exactly symmetrical, but as long as those anchor points are right on the line, that means we're doing it good. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out. And then I'm going to, again, hold down Option and then click and drag, and then hold down Shift while I'm dragging to constrain it so that it's going exactly across without any up and down movement. Okay. And then I'm going to release when it is on that exact center line. So now again, this half of the leaf is going to be drawn from one side of the pattern, and this half of the leaf is going to be drawn from the other side of the pattern, and it's going to pick up seamlessly so that it's a completely fluid pattern. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is put a background color in here. So I'm going to go in here and create a rectangle, and I'm just going to drag from the top corner of this to the bottom corner. And sometimes it's good to zoom in to make sure that your sizing is exactly right. So you can see that this is exactly in the bottom corner of that artboard. And if I zoom in on this side, it's exactly in that top corner. So that looks good. And then I want to bring this behind the other objects. So I'm going to select them and go up to Object and Arrange and Send to Back. So that's going to send it behind all those other leaves. And then we could choose some different colors for this. Let's go back to our theme. This blue color is pretty cool. I think I'm going to choose this kind of pink color. That looks pretty good. We could also add other objects in here if we had other plants, or if we wanted to put some geometric objects in here, or different color patterning. That would all work, but again, it just has to be seamless so that one side repeats to the other side on both the vertical and the horizontal axis. But for instance, if we wanted to put like a little dot in here, maybe we'll make it white and put that right in the middle. That'll be totally fine, and that'll repeat throughout our entire pattern. So the last thing we need to do is just sort of tidy this up, and then we can apply it as a pattern. So the problem we're having is all these leaves that are sticking outside of our pattern. We're not going to want to have those because they're going to mess up the way our pattern works. So in order to clean that up, we're going to use something in the Pathfinder panel called the Crop tool. So let's go up to Window and grab that Pathfinder panel. There we go. You may already have it in your interface. And this is actually a really useful section. We're going to be using it more. But for now, we're just going to be using this one crop feature. So in order to use this, what we're going to do is create a rectangle. And this rectangle we want to create to the exact shape that we want our final crop to be. So I'm going to go ahead and make it that exact 1000 by 1000 artboard shape. And we also want to make sure that this rectangle is on top of everything else. So if there's anything poking out on top of it, you can always go up to Object and Arrange and Bring to Front, and that'll ensure that it's the very top layer. From there, you want to go ahead and select everything underneath it, including the rectangle itself. And then when you click on Crop, it's going to get rid of everything that was poking out. So it really, constrained our image and got rid of all that extra stuff that was, unnecessary. So that looks really good. Let's go ahead and close this panel for now. And then we're going to open the swatches panel. The swatches panel is where we're going to save our pattern swatch. So let's go up to Window and then down to Swatches. And then all we have to do is select our rectangle and just drag it right into that swatches panel. There we go. And you can see it added that pattern over here in this little area. So I'm going to zoom out. And then what we can do is create a rectangle in our larger artboard. And then just go ahead and click our swatch. And you can see that it applied the pattern to that area. And since we configured this correctly, the pattern is nice and seamless. So there's no areas in here where we're seeing that glitchy edge of the pattern. So just make sure that that's all sorted out. If you are seeing those, then that means that this isn't completely aligned right. So make sure it's aligned right and try it again. Let me know if you run into any trouble with that. So one last thing I want to do is create more of a freeform pattern. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these two sections. And we're going to create a pattern that is a little bit more random, a little bit more organic. So I'm going to go ahead and take my leaf here, make a copy. I'm going to shrink it down. And this time I'm just going to kind of rotate it in a random direction. So I'm going to kind of rotate it. I'll make a copy of it, rotate it again, maybe make this one a little bit bigger. There we go. Maybe make a smaller one. And this would look even better if you had multiple different types of plants. In my case, I just have the one, so I'm just kind of making it work. Okay, there we go. Okay, maybe I'll put this one over here. Okay, so again, remember there's a rule that anything that's on one side has to be copied to the other side. And since we're working with these leaves that are a little bit more random this time, we're going to have to use a different technique to make sure that all of that is aligning. So what we're going to do is use the move tool, and the move tool is going to allow us to be really precise. So again, we're going to want to copy this leaf to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and then up in Object, I'm going to go to Transform and then down to Move. Okay, so the move tool is going to pop up. If preview is checked, this might move around a little bit. I'm going to keep preview checked for now. First thing I'm going to do is kind of zero everything out because I want to type in, the decisions that I want to make. And since we know that our pattern swatch is exactly 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, we know that we want to make a copy of this leaf and move it 1000 pixels to the left. So in the quadrant system, that's going to be in the negative direction. So what I'm going to do is type in negative 1000 pixels for the horizontal direction. I'm going to leave vertical exactly at 0 pixels because I don't want it to move up or down. And the last thing I'm going to do is click this button, copy. So if you click OK, it's only going to take this leaf and move it. But if you instead click copy, it's going to make a copy, leaving the original one there, which is what we want. And then it's going to move the copy 1000 pixels. So that's going to be what we want for there. I'm going to click copy. And now we have a copy of the leaf moved exactly where we want it to go. We're going to do the same thing for this big guy here because, again, it's sticking out of the bottom. So we want that bottom of the leaf to repeat at the top. So I'm going to select that leaf. I'm going to go up to Object, Transform, and Move once again. But in this case, we're going to zero out horizontal, and we want it to move vertical. So I'm going to move this negative 1000 pixels vertical, and I'm going to click copy. If we were starting with a leaf that was on the top and we wanted to move down, then instead of negative 1000, we would just put 1000. So the positive direction is always down and to the right, and the negative direction is left and up. Okay, so in this case, negative 1000 is going to be correct. We're going to go ahead and click copy. There we go. So now this and this will be seamless in the final pattern. So we want to move stuff around. This leaf is a little bit too close to that leaf, so I'm just going to move this around to kind of rearrange it to make it look a little better. There we go. And then maybe we need one other leaf kind of in here. go. Move that up. I think I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. Okay, and then this one, again, we're going to need a copy that's going to go underneath. So I'm going to select that. Oops, there we go. Select it, go up to Object, Transform, and Move. And then this time I'm going to move this 1000 pixels in the vertical direction. Click Copy. There we go. And now it created that little bit of the leaf sticking out there. That's going to make it seamless with that. Okay. So maybe we'll need one more kind of little mini leaf in here. There we go. And then let's go ahead and create our background again. Okay. I'm going to go up to Object, Arrange, and Send to Back. And we'll change that to our pink background color. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then why not? We'll throw a few white circles in there again. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool, take the white fill color, and I'll just make a few little white circles just to fill this in. Again, I think this pattern would look better with a big variety of different botanicals, but it'll work. Okay, there we go. So now everything that's on the edge has been seamlessly moved. So this pattern should be good to go. The last thing we need to do is clean it up again with that crop tool. So I'm going to bring the Pathfinder back up. There it is. And then again, I'm going to create that square right on top of the area that we want to define as the pattern. And then I'll zoom out a little bit and then select everything and then click this crop button. So that'll chop off anything that's on the outside. I'll close that Pathfinder panel. And then we're ready to select this and drag it into our swatches. So there it is next to our original swatch. And if I create a rectangle, I can apply that swatch and you can see it worked seamlessly. So just a couple fun examples. Remember, this assignment is totally up to your creative control. So if you want to use colors outside of your theme or adjust any of the colors in your theme, or if you want to find your own inspiration for botanicals or draw your botanicals in a completely different way, feel free to do that. You know, this is your assignment and I'd love you to get creative. So can't wait to see what you guys come up with.